that's right. Yeah. So I'm basically, yeah. So I'll give a quick introduction. This is a game that is in one of the manuscripts at Corpus Christi, and I got totally geeked out on it, and basically I made my own set, and this is the actual, like, there's a diagram that's in the manuscript. So I've made my own sort of larger version so that I could actually try and work out how, like, where all the pieces went, and the instructions for setting out the board, which is basically all there is about the game, is all of this text here, which is in Latin, and then the gospel pretty much starts on the next couple of pages. That's all. Yeah, so that's all the description there, and I thought, I mean, when I looked at the history, I thought this is a really fascinating international project, essentially, because it was originally made for King Athelstan, and then it was, and the person that designed it, according to that Latin translation, was a Roman Jew and a skilled Frenchman. So those were the two people that designed the game. And then they made it for King Athelstan, and then some monks who were visiting the court of King Athelstan must have seen it and decided, oh, we'll just like make a copy of this. And then they basically took it back to Ireland, and eventually it was copied into a manuscript, which is the one that they've got in Corpus Christi, and that was from the, I guess it was like from the monastery in Bangor, in Northern Ireland, and now it's here. And then I've basically made the pieces, and I've actually played this game a couple of times. One in Corpus Christi, where the manuscript is, and one at Wycliffe Hall. And it's my last day working at the Bodleian, so I thought I'd show it, come along and try and demonstrate it. So essentially, like, I'm setting up the board, and as I say, that's the only thing that's actually described in the manuscript. It doesn't really say anything about how you play it, just how you set it up. And the diagram also gives you sort of lots of clues as to what it's talking about in the Latin. I mean, I don't read Latin. I had to find a translation of this online, and then sort of try and, you know, work it out based on all of this stuff, the Canon Tables. It's very mathematical, but it's beautiful when you've actually set it up. It's geometric. It has, like, its order. I think that was probably part of the mentality behind it. It's like creating like order out of chaos, basically. As I set it up, I would try and explain it, because it's probably the easiest thing. So in this gospel, there's all these canon tables, which Peter Toth has talked about before. What they are is basically correspondences between all four gospels, where there's the same passage sort of mentioned in each one. Now in the game, the center is the first canon, which is where there's all four of the evangelists, and like on the table, the evangelists are represented by these four colors. So we've got Matthew is yellow, Luke is white, Mark is red, and John is green, in my interpretation. In the manuscript, they're just given like little dots, basically 1, 2, 3, 4 dots. So the first canon is like the sort of key one, and that's the one that's in the center. And I'm just trying to set it up right now. You've got like essentially 4 repeated little groups of 4 here. So where am I? Another red one there. Usually this is the bit you have to do before the game starts, so I'm going to have to try and concentrate on doing this and talking to you at the same time, so you don't all get bored. No pressure. I mean, I could even, like, you can even just play it like starting off like with that, but I will try and set it all up so you can see the full board in its full glory. So the first canon is the one where there's the 4 evangelists. The second canon is only 3, so you've got Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
So it's a synoptic gospel.
So there's synoptic gospel. So forget about the green ones. I'll just try and pick out the right pieces. Do this very quickly. So there should be 3 of each, and that's basically in the description. It's kind of like describing how, well, there's 3 in this one, and then there's 2 in this one, and that's why there's all these pieces, and that's the numbers, and that's basically how they've kind of mathematically represented it. There's also these little pieces here, which are the variegated pieces, and they are in the game that I've tried to have to sort of like infer what the rules are, but these are like wildcard pieces. So they're essentially ones that you can kind of take at various points in the game if you've got no other options. There's only 2 different types. There's one's for John and one for Mark, and this is one for Mark because it's got red on it. But they basically count as 2 if you capture one of those. So anyway, I will leave those for now. I'll try and set these up. Now this is the bit where it gets complicated, and I need my. I had because I'm working in the imaging department right now. I actually had this 3D image taken of this recently down. so there's actually a 3D representation of this game now online. I don't know if it will ever be made public, but at the moment I have a private link to it. So right, let's get these through here.
Basically, you then use a dice.
Yes. So that's why in the things that I looked up online about the game, there was lots of mentions of this other game called Hnefanteffel, which for those who are in the know about that is a Viking game, or kind of, I think that's where it mainly is played. And that's more of a strategy game, bless you. So it's where you have to take pieces a bit like chess. And so that's the second canon set up now. So there's 3 in each, these 3 groupings. I'll explain that as we get there. So now I've got to work out what the next canon. The next canon is just, what is it? So it's Matthew, Luke, and John. Matthew, Luke, and John. Right. Luke. See, the reason why I did Luke as white is because I think in Greek Luke means white. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that checks out.
Luke, well,
my brain is pretty rusty, but
yeah, it's anyway, sort of like, you know, leukocytes in medicine are white blood cells, aren't they? So, so I assume that there is a bit of a reason.
Is white.
nice, yeah.
So
I don't think it's
not quite, maybe, but anyway, my reasoning for like the colours was fairly arbitrary. The only other thing, because it was written by Irish monks. Yellow in Irish, booyah, means luck or victory. And Matthew is the one that's most likely to win. So that's why I made them yellow. So, right, where are we? Okay, another yellow in there.
So, is there any relation to how frequent or how long each of the canons is? Because the second canon with the synoptic gospels is by far the longest, while then the third is much shorter. But
no, there's not really any relationship to like the actual amounts of the pieces are just fixed to sort of like permutations as opposed to like anything related to like how big the canons are. But you know, I think like, you know, essentially where am I? So essentially the game can be played like this is what I was getting at with the Hnefanteffel thing. Hnefanteffel is a strategy game. This is most definitely a game of chance. It's so that's the third canon now done. So the last one's Matthew, John, Matthew, John, and Mark, I think so. Knef and Teffel is meant to be like strategy. This is definitely a chance game. So that's why it's in the clue is in the title basically. It's Elia Evangeli, the dice game of the evangelists. So essentially the way I've kind of figured it out as being is a bit like Trivial Pursuit but for the Bible. So essentially
Love it.
yeah. So you're basically you can play it just as a pure game of chance, where you're just taking the pieces based on the dice rolls. But I think the way in which they would have played it was that you had to answer the question, which was what is the verse essentially that relates to this piece in the canon.
I think it's a good way of like getting you to memorize the verses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point. And the reason why I've inferred that from the text is because there's this very cryptic mention of these things called duxes and comites, meaning like dukes and counts.
Yeah.
And so the just from the amount of games I played on my phone and like how many leaderboards you are, and even things like Duolingo where you're trying to get to the top of the leaderboard, I just thought it has got to be something to do with like a leaderboard. So I think they might have even had a plan to like make this into a league game, you know. So like you basically sort of you know, see who can get to the top of the leaderboard, as it were.
Yeah.
And right, we're getting there. So I mean, even this is just quite stunning. So that's Canon 1, Canon 2, Canon 3, Canon 4. Now the ones from the 5th canon onwards are much simpler because there's only 2 in each of those. So, and they basically start going across the board like this, and this is all described in the Latin. So we've got Canon 5 is Matthew and Luke.
Yeah, I used to teach Canon Tables to theology students as a cheat sheet because they were allowed to take the Nistler-Aland edition of the New Testament into the New Testament examination, which has the Canon Tables in the front. And they were quite often asked questions such as the parable of the sower, in which Gospels is that? And if they found it in one, they could look it up in the Canon Tables.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to figure out that the Nistler-Aland one was the only place where you could actually find canon tables, like, because they don't exist in any other Bibles nowadays. So, so basically, yes, that was the key, really, and that's why all of this stuff is basically copied out of that. And that took me a little while, to tell you. Almost there. And yeah, so these canons, like, they sort of go across the board like that. And so even though there's no sort of like obvious order in which you do it, my explaining to you where the way, you know, the order I've laid them out is basically the same order they get taken off. Okay. Yeah. The board. So who wants to play?
Dennis.
I don't know if I know my Bible well enough, but
No,
sure.
no, we can play the basic rules.
Yeah.
Now there's something going on here because there's more pieces left than I would think. Okay, I missed that one. Yeah, that's what's happened.
Is that token meant to be
Yes.
that way?
No, I'll get to that one
interesting.
in a second.
Cool. Okay.
So yeah, no, you don't need to know any Bible for this. It's fine. If you want, you can just play it. All you need to really know is that the order of the Gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all you need to know. Right, yes, and thankfully you've got 4 pieces left. These are the ones that represent the 10th canon. They're the ones in which there's only, you know, each one of the Gospels just
Sondergut, yeah.
has its own thing. It doesn't. It's not included in any of the other ones. So these pieces go. They kind of match up with the ones in the corner. These ones are in the text, they're decoration essentially.
Wait, so Matthew's 1, Luke's 2, John's 3, and Mark's 4.
No.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Matthew 1, Mark 2.
Yeah.
Luke 3, John 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
then how come Luke's got 2 lines? How come they've got different lines to the number that they are?
Yeah, that there's another thing that's explained in the text, which is kind of funny, I guess. Like, it's basically, it says that Luke takes precedence over Mark because Luke has 2 books.
He also wrote the Acts of the Apostles.
Yeah.
So.
So actually, like,
Thumbs up list.
yeah. So actually, Luke takes precedence over Mark, even though like he's number 3 and Mark is number 2.
Okay.
That's the board set up.
Nice.
Finally, thank you.
Now we just go play.
Yeah. So, and I've got these dice. These are the 4-sided dice. That's actually kind of the most like what a representative of a Latin or Roman dice, 4-sided dice was like, where it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then these sort of pointy tips, so they can't land on the points, so it has to land on its side. So you basically just get 1, 2, 3, or 4. So the way in which I've kind of so these rules are like inferred, like there is no description of them. So like, by all means, if you have any other ideas, tell me. But this is the way in which I've played it with other people, and it seems to work. Is that you need 4 players. You can have 2 to 4 players. You don't have to have 4, but 2 to 4 players. So who would like to play? Okay.
I'll play because I'm really confused.
Okay, yeah. It does become clearer once you start playing it. Okay. We won't.
Yeah, good,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
great.
We won't necessarily. Anybody else want to play? I will oversee. So yeah, pull up a chair.
So this is Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Yes.
Okay.
We won't necessarily play through the whole game because it can take a while, especially as when you start rolling the dice. Sometimes you don't get the numbers you need, and you have to keep going and going.
I will start to get hungry around 12.
That's all right. Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah. I mean, I meant to start working.
None of us are down there.
Yeah, it's my last day. So I'll give you all the dice. Right.
We get one each.
Yeah, I get one each because I've got 4. Yeah. Okay. So what you do to start off with is you've got to find who's going to be Matthew. So generally, the way I would think you do it is everybody rolls, and whoever rolls the 1 is Matthew. If more than one person rolls a 1, you got 1.
Oh,
You got 1.
Okay, so we release to.
You got 4. Okay. Yeah. So you just keep rolling until one of you gets a 1.
Was Matthew the most likely to win?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So you're Matthew.
Yes.
Well, that's perfect because you are sitting in the right place. For
Oh,
Matthew.
great.
So if you hadn't been, you can just turn the table like that.
Yeah.
At that point, people can decide whether they want to swap round or whatever. But like for now, you'll sit. So you're Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially like this little first quadrant, which is the first area we're going to go to in the game.
Yeah.
Matthew, you're Luke, you're John, and you're Mark.
Oh, okay.
So you just remember your colours, really, essentially, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to capture as many pieces of your own colour as possible.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
And you capture it. This is one of the key pieces. In the text, it actually refers to this as being like the principal piece, and it represents like the unity of the Trinity, and also there's a bit of Old Irish which says Fergabula, which I inferred as being the capturing piece.
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So, as you're Matthew, you get to start, and because you're starting, essentially you will be able to take one of the 4 pieces automatically, because whatever you roll, you will land on one of those.
Okay. Okay.
So
Wait,
you
so
roll.
where's the starting point if we're
So-
counting?
That's the first one.
Okay.
That's the second one. That's the third one. That's the 4th one. You have to take all of the 4 before you move on to the next one.
Yeah. So I rolled a 1.
You rolled a 1 again.
Yep.
Is that loaded?
I was gonna say, I was looking to see if this is like got anything on the inside that's
Okay.
on this side, but
So you move the piece onto the yellow one.
okay.
Now at that point, if you were playing the sort of like the Trivial Pursuit version, you would probably have to recite that version, recite that counter. I won't go into how you would figure out which one you start with. I have another means of devising that, but for now, essentially you get to take that piece. So you just take the one from underneath it and leave it in its place. Leave the taking piece in its place.
I see.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you get to roll again.
Oh, wow, okay. 4.
4.
So, John.
John,
which
yeah,
is red?
the green.
Oh, green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Do
that's
I
it.
take that?
Yeah, and move the piece there.
Oh, yes.
Now, I'm just going to explain at this point about the wild cards, right? So each of these variegated pieces is in a corner. Now, as you move around the board with the taking piece, you end up invariably in one of the corners, or maybe sometimes like you're on the line between the two. Now, because you're taking John, if you roll a 4 again, you technically wouldn't be able to go because you've already taken it. But because there's a wildcard piece of John there, you can take that, you can move it to there. And it's the same with the other ones.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
But if you can't, if you like roll a 1, essentially, then you have to pass over.
Okay. Okay. So I roll again.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
3.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
So loose.
Think someone's gonna win.
Okay. Oh my god.
Yeah, I told you, yellow's lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now you've taken all 4
Yeah.
of that grouping, so
Yeah.
we'll move on to this grouping now.
Okay.
Again, you can roll whatever, and you will definitely get one.
So you just keep rolling until you don't get one.
Yes.
Mark, which is
Red.
Red. Thank you.
Mhm.
So
That's it.
okay.
And if you roll a 4, then you have to take the one that's actually there. You can't take the wildcard one
I
until
understand.
until that other one's been taken.
Yeah.
But
So that's Luke.
that's Luke, yeah, because the wildcard ones are actually worth 2 at the end, is what
How
I
come
think.
there's no Matthew wildcard?
Right. So now
Mark.
I'm
Or
done.
is it Mark wildcard?
No, there's a mark. There are marked ones, but you're right. There's no Matthew ones. There's no Matthew ones and no Luke wildcards. But there are more pieces of those ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So I've rolled a 3, so there's no Luke wild card. So then my turn
goes to person on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to roll.
Either
A 1 or
a 1 or a 4.
4. 2.
Oh.
Oh.
Is there? Oh no.
Your turn.
There's no wildcard.
1 or a 4. 1 or a 4. No.
Okay.
Might be coming around to you again.
Oh, yeah. Caroline's pretty lucky though. So.
I got a 4.
Oh.
You got a 4. Okay. Right. Well, you get to take that piece then.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. Okay. Keep going.
All right.
You go get a 1 now, or a 4 again.
Or a 4, yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll stop the filming now.